Hello and welcome to Impact Africa, our online talk show where we get to have conversations with diverse people and organizations who are impacting lives positively. My name is Dr. Kemi Akeode Adebayo, also known as Mama K, and in today's program to share his story, we've got the humble, hardworking, very energetic, I've only met him not long, but I feel I know him already, Mr. Riyad Ahmed. He's one of the directors for Zon's group of companies, which is based in Cape Town, South Africa. My brother, I'm allowed to call you brother now.
Absolutely.
I did ask.
Absolutely, you know that.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Dr. Kemi?
I can't complain.
Good. Always good to see you.
Always good to be here.
Yeah.
And I know we're right in the showroom for Zons. But before we go into Zons, let me find out first about you. Who is Riyad? Where did you grow up? Where were you born?
Well, thank you very much. I'm Riyad Ahmed. I have a South African citizenship, born and bred in South Africa. Family comes, great-grandfathers come from outside of South Africa, from India and from Germany originally, and Malaysia.
India and Germany?
Yeah, and
okay.
Malaysia. South Africa, for those who haven't been, is a very diverse population. We have people from all over the world, and I think we are really called the melting pot.
And I believe that, because even the languages is like 11 official
we have,
languages?
I think, 13 official languages.
Oh, is it 13?
I think it's 13.
Okay.
Yeah, so born and bred in South Africa, did marketing, and then joined the Jean's group about 23 years ago. The group I'm part of the machinery division, Jean's Business Opportunities, and I think you know that. And we sell a range of machinery to start up your own businesses, but we also have other businesses in the stable, and there's a property division, there's a textile division as well, and then a trading division.
So let me go back to, you did marketing. Was that in Cape Town as well?
Cape Town, yes.
Okay, so how did that prepare you? What was your first job? Was working here your first job?
You know, I have a daughter who's now at the university studying, and she says, "Dad, why is real life so different from university studies?" And I said, you know, you can study economics, you can study marketing, you can study all different degrees in the formal sector, but I think you can probably lay claim to it's very different. I think I did marketing, and it helped me very much in terms of how to market a business, how to get products or services out in front of people. But nothing quite prepares you for the real world. You know, what you think is black and white and very simple. It's never like that in the real world. So I think most of my marketing experience and knowledge and know-how has come from being on the ground and in the field.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've got a daughter.
Yes.
Is she an only child, and you've got others?
I have a son and a daughter.
Okay. Two, just like me.
I have, yeah.
It's better to keep them
I said
that young. That
and I said the pigeon pair and we're done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Boy, girl, done.
But yeah, so they are 22 and 20 years old.
Okay.
They always say, "Dad, why do you work on weekends? Why do you work after hours? You know, surely it's not necessary." And I said, "No, it's not necessary. Maybe not be necessary, but if you want to get somewhere in life, you know, I always say that I have a golden rule. You've got to be in the top 10%. Whether you are a plumber, whether you are manufacturing popcorn out of your spare bedroom at home, whether you are an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor, the world is so competitive that if you're not prepared to put in extra work and work after hours and work harder than the next guy, it's going to be very difficult. So just always try and be in the top 10% of whatever industry you're in."
I agree.
I keep teaching or trying to teach my kids that.
So how was family life for you now that you're trying to pass on, you know, do you have both your parents still around?
I do. Okay. I'm very fortunate in that I have both parents, and both come from a very entrepreneurial family.
Right.
and maybe my unhealthy working ethic, which I have to lay claim to, sometimes is unhealthy, because I'll work late hours and I'll work on weekends, and sometimes at the expense of some family life. I think it was picked up from my dad, and I try and maybe teach my kids, who are probably going to be entering the real world working environment in the next 2 to 4 years. I mean, you need a balance in life, right? Yeah. I think balance is important. I also think we have an overload of information feed, which is not healthy. You know, I suppose if I look at my parents' times, there were not cell phones, there was not this constant being engaged with clients via WhatsApp or Instagram or Facebook. They would work really hard, and they would, 6 o'clock in the evening, they may be working, or 7 o'clock, but when they closed that office door, there was no contacting them. A client couldn't WhatsApp them at 9 o'clock at night, or send them an Instagram message or a Facebook message. And I think, yes, while we really need to work hard to get somewhere in life, I think it's a fine balance to also unplugging and really unplugging from work.
Yeah.
One of our New Year's resolutions was the word presence, and not presence as in gift, but presence as in be where you are at the moment. So when you are at home, be at home. When you are at work, be at work. And I just thought that was, for me in my life, a very valuable word, because, you know, it's very easy to be at home but still be at work.
Correct.
And it's very rarely is it the other way around. You very rarely are you at work.
And then you're thinking about home.
Yeah, unless you have a crisis, and that happens sometimes. But 99% of the time, it's always the flip. It's you at home, but your mind is still racing about work. And even when you engage with your family, it's sometimes, you know, you're not even realizing the manner you're engaging, because you're still wound up from work. So, yeah, I try and instill that in my kids.
And that's important. So let me go now to Zons here. So what year, I know you said you joined 23 years ago. So what year did it start, and what was it involved in?
So the Zons group of companies is about 35 years old now. Okay. I would think, if not older, maybe 40. It's one of the top 300 privately owned companies in South Africa. The group started out in textiles. It then got involved in property about 30 years ago. They have a commercial property portfolio. And then we started doing machinery about 22, 23 years ago. And what originally started out as an engineering business to manufacture stainless steel equipment for the national supermarkets in South Africa has slowly morphed into a business where we sell, as you can see in the showroom, we sell over 30 business opportunities. I think living on the African continent, we all know that we can't wait for our governments to find employment for us. It's never going to happen. And Jean's Business Opportunities has really been fortunate in that they are in the perfect position to supply a wide range of business opportunities for people looking for it.
And I think, you know, in South Africa and across Africa, entrepreneurship is really a key thing that should be used to address poverty. I believe, and I'm sure that's part of what, you know, because like you said, we can't depend on the government alone, so we need to be able to own and run, you know, businesses itself. So with most of the equipment, let me go on now into the equipment. Which ones are the ones that sells like fasten, you know, for cottage industry, or, you know?
So I suppose it's regional dependent,
Okay.
right? And I notice it very clearly, depending on which country we visit. There's sometimes in one particular country, there's a massive demand for agricultural equipment.
Right.
So we sell a large range of equipment for agricultural, pellet making, maize and wheat crushing. We sell peanut butter making, we sell spice, garlic peelers, fruit and vegetable processing. So in one country, when the agricultural sector is big, there's a huge demand for that.
Okay.
We'll visit another country and we'll find construction machinery, roof sheet making machines, brick machines, gutter making machines, very big. We'll visit another country and suddenly we'll find clothing manufacture, clothing printing, where people want to print on their clothing and create their own designs and brand their clothing. So it really is regional dependent. But in saying that, obviously what we call FMCG, which stands for fast moving consumable goods, things like soap, toilet rolls, detergents, the things that you and I use in our homes every day. Regardless of which country we visit, there's always a demand for that equipment. So I guess I could say to you, our detergent making machines are very popular. Our toilet roll making machines are very popular. Our soap making machines are very popular. And then something that's becoming more and more popular on a daily basis, we can see the demand, are our recycling machines. Machines that take waste, plastic bottles, glass, and create different products out of it.
So all this machinery, they're produced here in South Africa?
Yes. So we import all the electronic components, all the control panels and the touch screens and what I call the brains of the machine. That comes from overseas. But all the steel and structural work and the bearings and the manufacturing is done in Cape Town.
Wow, that's awesome. So what has been some of the challenges, you know, for you guys as a business, and how have you managed to overcome them? Because I'm sure something like COVID, I don't know, whether it had an impact on you.
I don't think there's a business in this world that hasn't been massively impacted.
I know, I just want to make sure that...
So absolutely, COVID was, I mean, the lights were switched off for everybody. I suppose being serial entrepreneurs, we went within 3 to 5 days, and this is probably a lesson for entrepreneurs. We went from being machine sellers and builders into being PPE manufacturers. So because one of our divisions is involved in textiles, we within literally a week started manufacturing masks. Because you couldn't do anything else. And we obviously needed to keep the lights on and be paying electricity and paying salaries for our staff. So we very quickly morphed into doing something else, and that's probably now that I'm talking to you, I've never consciously thought about it, but it's probably a vital lesson for entrepreneurs, is when one door closes, be nimble enough and quick enough to be starting something else. You know, one of the things where my wife and I differ terribly on is I have a saying that says, launch and then adjust. And that means start the project and then adjust and sort it out as you're on the go. And her saying is adjust, keep adjusting and then launch. And I'm saying to her, but I'm already 150 meters ahead of you. I may be slightly lost, but I'm ahead of you somewhere there. So
well, you complement each other with that, trust me.
So I think there's something for entrepreneurs is calculated risk is critical. But I do think it's never the perfect time, right? There's never the perfect. I can look for a million excuses why not to start this or do this, but if you don't start now, you're never going to get going.
So what have you been mostly proud of for you guys as a business?
The thing that makes me ultimately have that warm, fuzzy feeling inside is seeing our clients succeed. You know, I suppose we all start out and we want to sell as much as we can. But it really, what makes us most proud and most happy now as a company that sells machinery is when we're seeing clients succeed. Because, you know, it's not just that person, right? I always say, you know, it's like you take a drop of water and it's a dead still lake, and you drop that, or brick or stone, and you drop it in, and the ripples start and literally keep going until you almost can't see them anymore, but it's still there. And I think that's what it does for me. It really makes me appreciate that one champion has got such an incredible impact in their street, in their community, in their society, that it just creates a momentum from there out. So that's, yes, to answer your question, what makes us really happy is to see our clients succeed.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what? I've been told we need to have a quick break, and we'll be right back. Wow, I was just so fascinated, you know, just hearing that journey of being born, you know, here in Cape Town, and from descendant as far as India, Germany, and Malaysia.
Correct.
And your journey with, you know, marketing, studying marketing, then 2 wonderful children with a wife that keeps you right with your lunch and
lunch and
adjust.
Keeps my feet flat on the ground.
And what you said there about being present, you know, presence is important. And the journey of hearing what Zones, you know, is about. And I'm sure we want to come back actually to just even see how some of the machine work, but we will arrange that at another time. But I want to go now into you now. For you as a person, what are the 3 things that you value most in life, and why?
Wow. Dr. Kemi, that is, I knew I should have prepped myself properly for this interview. The 3 things that I value most in life, or things that I find, spirituality.
Okay.
I think, I think COVID has taught us that life in the blink of an eye can change, and if you don't have your spirituality, life can get pretty rough. It's interesting, right? Because again, I keep harping back to entrepreneurs, but you know, business is not easy.
Yeah.
It's not for the faint-hearted. And you'll get super high highs, and you'll get really low lows when there's no business coming through the front door. And if you don't have your spirituality, life gets really, really tough. So spirituality is probably my number 1, and I think for me number 2 is family. I think that it's your safe space.
Yeah.
You know, and I think if you have a family that understands that the sacrifices you are making is ultimately for your family, it makes life a lot easier. There's less stress at home when you do need to work after hours or late. I think that is number 2. Number 3, I'm a passionate weekend warrior exercise person. So I probably, if I have to be honest with myself, exercise, because I work very hard, it is without a shadow of a doubt, it's a release valve for me. And it doesn't necessarily need to be exercise, because you may be passionate about chess, you may be passionate about sewing or whatever. And I think if that's your passion, make sure you give yourself some time every day to enjoy what you do, purely for the fun of doing it, right? And endorphins is a wonderful thing, you know. I always say, my wife says, do you know you're addicted to exercise? So I say to her, I'm addicted to the endorphins that I get from the exercise. That just happens to be the means. So yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I think spirituality, family, and exercise for me are my three things that are important.
So let me go now to more, you know, deeper, serious thing that probably makes what, you know, who you are. What is leadership, you know, to you, and what's your definition of success?
If you ask me about leadership 10 years ago, I'll tell you it's to make sure that you get the maximum amount out of your team and push them really hard and drill them and make sure the office is open at 8 and closes at 5, and you know, all the things that as a 35, 40 or 35-year-old you may think are leadership qualities. I think what maybe my experience has been, and my lessons that I've learned, and the burning my fingers going through life, I think it's about looking after your team that you work with.
Right.
I think it's about making sure that they are okay, that they feel safe, that they feel heard. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because I take a lot of pleasure now in just connecting with the people that I work with. And whether it be spending 10 minutes in their office or on the phone if I'm not in the building, people that are sick, people that are at home on maternity leave. So yes, to answer your question in a nutshell, I think leadership is about looking after, making sure that the people around you in your team feel like they are being cared about. Yeah.
And your definition of success? Because a lot of people think success is money. Are you one of those, or I don't know? I just say that bluntly.
No, and it's so, and I can tell you again, I'll be brutally honest. 15 years ago, if you ask me about success, I tell you it's the car you drive, it's the money in your bank account, it's... I absolutely am clear in my head. It's the feeling of contentment. I think if you don't at some point in your life realize that you've got to be so super grateful for everything you have, you know, it's human nature to want more. I want the bigger car, I want the big want. I don't need it, but it's the want. You know, it's and I think the minute we can step back and be grateful for what we have, I think it's, I think that's the feeling of, that feeling of contentment, and the feeling that you don't have to chase, and that feeling of not having to chase, for me, is success.
Right. No, thank you. That's deep and very useful, especially for most of our young listeners, you know, who will be watching and listening. Now I know your dad was involved in the business.
Yes.
No, before I go into that, actually, you kept saying 10 years ago, 15 years ago. What shifted? that I'm just curious now about that
Yeah,
one.
what shifted?
What shifted? Is it age?
I had this discussion with a friend that I grew up with. And him and I were very similar growing up, and I think defined success in similar ways growing up, and now define success very differently. And we were actually discussing it, and we had a very good laugh, because I still try and unpack the reason for the shift in my view. And he very casually said to me, "I know what it is." I said, "Okay, well, you obviously do. I still don't know." He said, "We've just become more conscious of God."
Okay. Okay.
And maybe it's as you get older.
Yeah.
You know, I think as you get older, you realize it's impossible that all that we're here to do is earn money. It's not possible. That cannot be the reason for life, right?
Yeah.
And I think if we're not ensuring that the next generation is better than this generation, there's been a huge gap and misunderstanding in why we're here.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Let me go quickly, because I know we're probably going to stop for a break shortly, but I need to ask this one about, I know your dad, has been involved in the business and originally. So how did that happen for you? Was it you were asked to come and join, or you just said, you know what? I've got this marketing degree, and how did that work?
I guess I always knew, so the business, my dad used to work really crazy hours, even worse than I do. And I think we always knew that there would be a succession plan. It was not handed to us on a platter. I mean, I remember as a young boy coming in and having to sort out different color buttons into tubes as a young as a 6-7-year-old boy in the textile division, and that was how we used to come into the shop, and we used to help out.
That would keep you busy for a long time.
But I think what it also taught us is it taught us the value of things. I think sometimes as parents, we overindulge our kids, and we almost fearful if they're working too hard, like in terms of doing things, but we may be doing them a disservice. So yes, so to answer your question, I guess we were slowly introduced into the business over years and years. From school days, we knew on a Saturday our mates may be out going to the park, or we had to come to the office and work at the office. We'd get paid, but we had to come to the office. So I suppose it was a natural progression, right? We knew the space. By the time we finished college or university, we knew the environment pretty well. I suppose it's also what made it a little bit easier at university and college for us, is because subconsciously we were very involved in business from a young age, although we didn't even realize it like that.
It was natural.
It was a natural progression, I guess. So that's how it happened. It wasn't, well, today you're not in the business, tomorrow you are. We were slowly introduced into the business over a period of time.
Wow. Okay, well, we will have a short break and we'll be right back. we are in your showroom in Salt River, Cape Town, South Africa. And, you know, I can see all this wonderful, interesting machines of different sizes, from the tabletop one to the huge one. Run us through some of what we've got here.
Thank you. So we're in Salt River, Jean's Business Opportunities head office in Cape Town, Salt River. And in here we have, this is a toilet roll manufacturing machine. So it manufactures toilet rolls, Carlton rolls, kitchen rolls, hospital wipes, most tissue products on a roll. If I walk you through.
Wow, I just wish we could keep talking. There's so much for me already that I'm picking up, you know, in terms of your journey, the succession planning with yourself, you know, in terms of yourself and your siblings, or siblings, I believe. And I loved, you know, what you value, those three things that you mentioned. Although, exercise, I'm not too sure. I need to turn mine.
Doesn't need to be exercise. Anything that, you know, switches your mind off, right?
I know, exactly. But I love, you know, that your spirituality, your family, and exercise. No, that is deep. So in terms of those three things, and I know you've already shared some wonderful lessons already in terms of lessons, you know, in life, but what are additional tips that you will say you could tell your younger self? You know, because I remember now from the second segment you were talking about 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So now let's even take it back to 20 years ago. You know, what are some of the life lessons that's, you know, helped you up till now?
What could I tell my younger self? That's a very, very significant question, I guess. Sure, I've got so many things floating through my head that I tell myself. I'm trying to think which is the most important one. I guess I tell myself not to be so guarded. And what I mean by not being so guarded is, I think sometimes we go through life very overly cautious of the decisions we're going to make. I think obviously there are certain very obvious things that could be damaging to your life, and those decisions need to be taken with utmost care. But I think the day-to-day stuff, should I take this chance? Should I risk this? Should I go and try this opportunity? You know, often we steer and veer away from anything that we're fearful of. And I tell you, and this is the perfect example. At school, the minute I heard there was a 5K run or a 10K run, I used to be so filled with anxiety.
Really?
That I used to think of anything I could do not to go to school, because I just used to absolutely hate it.
Oh.
And yet, after I did my first 5K run, I thought, like, what was the big deal? Yes, it was stressful and it was tough and you sweated and it was hard work. But the minute you've done it, you've realized, firstly you've conquered that voice in your head, because that voice in your head is so controlling for everything in our lives. And I think again, I would tell myself, don't listen to that voice all the time. You know, the best entrepreneurs in the world did the toughest things and maybe never succeeded for the first 2, 3, 4 attempts. But you look at them now, and I'm talking about some of the very big names that we all know as global entrepreneurs. And if you look at the number of businesses that they've started over the years, and the businesses have not succeeded, but we now know them as massively successful businessmen, because it's one of the 7 businesses that they've started over the years that has now done so phenomenally well. So yeah, in a nutshell, I think I say this cautiously, take more risks.
Hi, now, thank you.
Yeah.
Now my final question. Obviously, you guys do a lot of work promoting and supporting entrepreneurs through these opportunities, the machine, and not only that, your other businesses, as well that you do. And you, being from Cape Town as well, are familiar with social issues, the poverty, the unemployment, and things like that. What is a social issue for you that speaks to you, even though you might not be doing anything about it, or maybe out of interest, you're just passionate about it, or you want to find out more about it? So it could be one, it could be two. I want to know what. And at the same time, I want a kind of solution for that social issue. I know we can't cover everything, in this.
I'm smiling because it's probably the easiest question you've given me today. And
Is it?
And you'll hear now why.
Okay.
So, I think the thing that's bothered me the most, being in this business of selling machinery for people to start their own business, is I've got all the hardware. I've got 20, 30 of the most incredible business opportunities that you can start from home. But what we didn't have, and it used to really bother me deeply, is that Riyadh comes to buy a machine and he takes the machine away with him, but he may have been employed as a staff member somewhere before, and he doesn't have the necessary set of skills to be the owner of a business. And that used to bug me terribly. So much so, and that's why I said you've actually asked me the easiest question of the day. In the last 2 years, we have developed and built an online training platform for that exact challenge. So Riyadh can now go and visit the Jean's website, and he can go and teach himself how to start and run his own small successful business.
Right.
Because I think in South Africa and Africa, we're not encouraged to be entrepreneurs. It almost happens by default. You leave university or you leave school and you don't have a job, and you start selling something from the side of the road, and suddenly that something grows into something bigger and bigger, and then you move it into a little office and you become an entrepreneur by default. But you don't necessarily start out after school and say, I want to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to go and print t-shirts and start a t-shirt printing business. And I think what my dream is, anybody wanting to start a business from, whether it be selling food from your house or food from a food vending cart outside your front door, or making toilet paper, or making bricks, or running a hairdresser from home. I want them to be able to go to a website, which we're doing on our website, and be able to upskill themselves on the basic fundamentals of business. I hope I've answered that question.
You have, and I like the fact that it's a real practical solution that is already there, which a lot of people might not be aware of. And I think that's what they say about information is power. So obviously, such an information, I believe, will help, even if it's not applicable to the person watching, but maybe they'll say, oh, okay, they say they have this platform and it is free.
Absolutely free.
So it is free, so people can go on to it, which will share the details for yourself to, at the end, for people to.
But I think that's critical, is, and whether it be on our website or if anybody else is offering it, just try and upskill yourself. So that you give yourself a better chance of success in a business.
It's really, really important. Whew, okay, I wish I could go on. I had one or two more, but no, we will get it back, I've been told. to
Well, thank you very much.
Do this again.
I'm very passionate about business and business in Africa and building the African continent. So I appreciate that you've taken the time to come and talk to us.
It's a pleasure. So I celebrate you and your team for what you're doing, because you might think, at the end of the day, you're selling products, but these are products that are changing lives, that are helping to change generation, helping to provide food on the table for people. And I like that element of the upskilling, online platform that you do as well. So thank you for impacting lives positively. Yourself, your dad, and everybody else involved, or that has been involved, up till date. So we will share the details afterwards. But before I allow you to go, you can't get away with this one. You have to help give, in closing, just some words of encouragement to anyone, out there that you might want to speak directly to. Anyone out there.
So I guess one of the most encouraging stories I've ever heard, and it's something that resonates deeply with me, is I'm sure all of us, or the majority of us, have all heard of a company called Microsoft and the gentleman called Bill Gates, or we've all heard of somebody called Richard Branson, Virgin Atlantic. And I'd love you to do yourselves a favor and go and Google where those businesses started out. And believe it or not, Microsoft and Virgin Atlantic were started out in their parents' garage at home. So you've got two of the companies, two of the top 2-3 biggest companies in the world, worth hundreds of billions of dollars, that were started out in a garage of their parents' house. And if that doesn't encourage you and show you and prove to you that anything is possible, you start out running a tiny little business from your bedroom at home or your garage, and it shows you with hard work and dedication where you can end up. So I hope we all go out there and give it our best shot.
Wow. Thank you, sir, for that.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. And well, you've heard it all. That's all we've got time for today. But we're hoping to be back where we will actually go through some of the machinery here and other services that they provide through this wonderful organization that is impacting lives, positively. Well, he said it there, anything is possible. Upskill yourself. Don't be so guided. Look after yourself, and then just so much. I don't want to start another program by going back to all that. So you need to rewind and watch it over and over again. But thank you for your time, for spending time with us on Impact Africa yet again. Till next time, this is myself and Mr. Riyad Ahmed from Zone saying, take care, God bless.
Goodbye, and look after yourself.
There we go. God bless.